So I've been getting a lot of comments and questions about why I don't bartend anymore, or comments on my highest view videos, such as living with the meth addict in Boston I talked about last year, saying how bartending isn't a thing for me. And there's all these comments and comments on top of comments talking about my experiences bartending and why it wasn't for me, or why I just don't do it anymore, or why I just don't go to bars altogether. Now, I have 3 different stories of all the bartending experiences I have. They're on the description if you want to go check those out. But throughout the story of why I don't do it anymore altogether, here it goes. This is a bar I've been going to for years. One of the examples of the bartending issues I've had is they always say they're not hiring or they don't need anybody, but over the past few years I've been here, when I've asked, they have new bartenders all the time who have no experience whatsoever, or they just don't seem to get the hang of being behind the bar. But yet they give them training and they're more laid back with them. But with me, I don't get my foot in the door. And when I do get my foot in the door, they expect you to know everything within a few days. And even the bartender here, who is a general manager now, was telling me that these bars didn't set me up to win and that you just need to find a better place. And everywhere you go, it just seems like it's the exact same thing. It's the exact same issues. Like, everybody has a difference in how they learn. These bars and restaurants seem to expect everyone to have the same type of pace and learning and training, and if you don't keep up, you're considered a failure and they let you go. But in reality, you just needed more time to catch up. With me, I got the hang of the cocktails, talking to customers, reading customers' mind, upselling, pouring shots in a fun way, figuring out the exact measurements, free pouring. But that's because I spent years doing it and studying. You don't learn things overnight. And that's what these bars and restaurants expect you to do, is to learn things overnight, because they either don't have enough people or they're just a dying industry and nobody wants to work. I've been also going to this bar for over 10 years now, and I noticed every year the foot traffic seems to get lower and lower. I remember back in 2015, there used to be so many people in here, it would be all the way to the door, and you could barely get in. You had to wait for like 15 other people, and there were 3 bartenders running around, 2 bar backs, 5 servers, 2 server and greeters. Overall, this place was jumping. But now, there's barely anybody in here, and it's a Friday night after 10:30. Another thing I've noticed after the pandemic is a lot of these bars and restaurants have really lost their touch with their customers, especially locals like me who have been there for years. For example, the bar that I just was at a minute ago, I would use their bathroom all the time right when they're closing and locking the doors. And when I'd ask them politely if I can use it, they would let me and give me a water to go and have a chit chat with me. But I've noticed in the past few years, they don't let me in, and they say to me, you can't come in at closing hours and not even use the bathroom or a water. And that just indicates like they've really lost their touch with people. And I have been doing that for years without having any issues or complaints. But now I've noticed that they just lost their touch. So like that bar alone I've been going to for over 10 years now, and all those years of going there I've never had any problems with anybody, never had any complaints. Always had a good time going there back in my early 20s. And I remember I did used to go use their restrooms right when they were closing and ask to get a cup of water to go and have a small talk. Like, I have been doing that for years and never had any problems whatsoever. And like after 2020, I've noticed they've been losing a lot of foot traffic. Their prices have been rising. The quality of their drinks have been going down. A lot of the bartenders have left. Many of them went to school. Some of them straight up quit or found another job. The one bartender is now a general manager, and I've noticed like it just seems like they've really lost their touch with their people. Like, one, you go there on a Friday night and there's like nobody there, and there's no live music like there used to be. Like, that's another thing I've noticed all these bars and restaurants is I don't see as many like live music or bluegrass events like I used to. And I remember every weekend it used to be jumping full of people every Friday and Saturday night, to where you could barely get in. And you would see like 15 people standing in front of you waiting for a drink, and 3 bartenders running around like a chicken's head cut off, 2 or 3 bar backs, 5 servers, 2 of the greeters like I mentioned in the video. And now there's like barely 2 people after 11 p.m. on a Saturday, and they're not open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday like they used to be. Like, now they're only open like Wednesday through Saturday at like 5 to 9. And when I asked the bartender why, they said it's because they weren't profiting. And all these years of being open every day but Sunday, now they're only open like 3 days a week. And it's just, I don't get it. Like, I remember it used to be like one of the busiest bars in the city and highest tourism because it was the oldest bar in the city. And now it just seems like they're losing their touch as well. Like when I was there that Friday night, I was there sweating and needed to use the restroom really badly before I head into my car and drive home. And usually, like right before they're closing or they're cleaning up and get ready to leave, I used to knock on their door and I would ask them like, "Hey, can I use the restroom and like have a water real quick?" And they would say, "Yeah, sure. We're getting ready to close." And then they would give me a pack of water to go with ice in, and then we'd all have a small talk outside just about life or how much money I made playing downtown or how my night was. And I noticed today that's not a thing anymore. Like, I was in there and the guy literally walked up to me and said, "Hey, we are having last call at 1, and we don't want anyone here, including using the rest of this hour." And there's like 3 people and they're still drinking their beverages. And they told me not to come back right on last call, and they said, "We understand you're a regular." I didn't really listen to what he was saying because I had a hard time hearing after all the loud guitar playing for hours, and all I ever heard was bullshit, really. As the guy was just like, "We don't want you back here," and I was just like, "Don't worry, I'm not a regular anymore. I'll never be back." Like, that's the thing with bars and restaurants. Like, they've lost their touch with customers. They seem like they're greedy. They want more tip money. The prices to their drinks have gone up. The quality of it's gone down. The vibe of the bar just kind of feels negative and toxic now. Like, the people at bars, especially the Cincinnati Bar Family group on Facebook, was just really toxic and full of childish people. Like, anytime you speak up for yourself or speak up to what's true, such as bars and restaurants being a dying market, they'll blow up your phone and say like how much of an idiot or a fool you are, and it just seems like they're 15-year-olds. Like, they literally behave like children where they have no respect or class for each other. And that's why I don't go on that page anymore, for one. And that's like the thing with bars and restaurants. Like, they've really lost their touch. They've really lost their connections with the customers in the business. And it's even like that when I'm bartending too. Like, when I was doing a catering a few years ago for weddings on Fridays and Saturday nights, I was just being me, and I may have said some like dumb shit in between. I mean, so does everybody. I mean, there were people that are saying worse things than me, but apparently, I'm the one who gets singled out on something, and I would get called like to the office on a day I wasn't working just to get demoted back to serving, because apparently there was one night I got a chick's number on the job. Like I mentioned in one of my videos, was Story Living with the Meth Head Addict in Boston, which is now my highest viewed video. And like, literally, I remember it's just, I don't know. I remember in 2015, there was no problems hanging out at bars and restaurants. It used to be a really cool place to hang out at. You would sit in the restaurant, have a drink, and watch the city streets and lights and the trolleys going by and just overall seeing life. And now you really can't enjoy it anymore because the drinks are too expensive, they're overpriced, the quality's gone down, they want you to tip for everything. There's homeless people everywhere standing in front of like the entrances and sidewalks asking you for money. When you leave the bar and walk a further bit down, you get surrounded by homeless people asking you for money. Areas like San Francisco is probably worse, with all the homeless people shooting fentanyl and shit. Like, all in all, it's just, bars and restaurants seem to have lost their touch, and they've become a dying market, and that they don't set people up to win like me. And every time I speak about my experiences when I bartended, a lot of immature people always say a bunch of dumb things to me about how like I'm a failure or I'm stupid. And the thing is, there's differences in how everybody learns, like I mentioned earlier. And it's not like these people are perfect either. It's like they're just sheep or a bunch of clowns laughing at you. Because like a real bartender with experience will tell you that they didn't set you up to win. It's like the quotes where you hear, a millionaire is not going to judge you for starting your first job, or a YouTuber with 1 million subscribers is not going to judge you for your first video kind of scenario, you know? Like, you got to start somewhere. It's the way they do it now is they make it so you climb on the train that's probably going 100 miles an hour, and then you fall right off. And when you fall off, you get pretty much laughed at or mocked. And I remember in 2015, they used to be hiring, and then they would train you for a week or so, and then you make $300 a night in tips. That's another thing I noticed about bartending. They say you make more than one night in your entire life. Even business owners say I made money in one night than I have in my life. Kind of scenarios, like they come home with $600 or so in like Vegas or Miami, and you just hear everything about how bartenders are fancy, wealthy people making all this money. But in reality, like when I was bartending in Miami Beach 3 years ago, I only made like $400 or $500 a week. Like I was ranging up to like $14 an hour, including tips. And all these things I hear about how they make so much money a night stacked in cash and tips and all that stuff. But then I see the reality of when I was bartending, and that to me is just I don't get it. Like I don't get why this is the culture now compared to what it used to be. Like what in the world is wrong with America? Like all the cities look like third world countries or failed cities. America's starting to look like it's undeveloped. The people are toxic, sick, rude, negative, selfish, and don't care or support one another. When you compare it to foreigners, Americans are snotty, greedy, and selfish people. And when I talk to foreigners, I tend to not have that problem. And all the cities, most of the cities in America just look like ghettos and undeveloped countries with crumbled infrastructure, disgusting living conditions, piles of trash and shit everywhere, such as San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York, and even parts of Boston outside of downtown. It's like they try to like sugarcoat everything. It's like in the tourist areas, you see that it's a really amazing place and that it's the American dream. But when you step out of the tourist areas, you just start to see the infrastructure crumbling. For example, when I was in downtown Miami in 2021, I remember I was outside of the tourist areas heading to some subway I can't remember the name of now. And like right behind it, I saw a building that was abandoned with like graffiti over it, trash, and a homeless man sleeping underneath it. And like all across it, I would see fences in front of buildings, plywood on windows, graffiti everywhere. It looked like Cuba pretty much. And that's how it is with bars and restaurants. Like they are closing left and right out of nowhere, which is why on my older videos I talk about Cincinnati being a dying city. That was because there were so many bars and restaurants closing in the area, or the foot traffic wasn't as much as it used to be. And even though there are tons of people in the area, it's just the vibe and the energy that it used to have, that's not there anymore. It just seems like the people are digital, fake, or just overall not real. All you ever see is just women standing on top of cars twerking at stoplights, and they look like they're like demented aliens dancing around. Like it just doesn't seem normal or human. And to me, I thought maybe it's because I'm in my 30s now and that I'm getting old and that partying's never been a thing for me. But when I look back at what it was like in my 20s, it was more classy and fancy. Like we can go to a bar in a suit and tie, have a professional conversation, and then come home and have some fun time. Or even just playing guitar like I did in jeans and a t-shirt, I would still meet people and I would be like basically a star of the city, and I didn't even realize how amazed I was with these people. I was like, I'm just playing here on the streets just for fun. But I've noticed lately when I play down there on the weekends, it just seems like I'm odd man out with people making fun of me and shit, or overall just not being interested in my playing. But whenever I meet these people or see what their lives are like, they themselves aren't that special.
And that's why I say, like, fuck society. And I'm always discriminated, probably because I don't convert to society, you know? And it was like that with bars and restaurants for sure. Like at the catering, I was always discriminated by a couple managers, and I was getting really fucking sick of it. And that's how it was at all the places I worked at. I had to either work for free a shift or two and not be paid for my time. And when I did stay at a place, I just wasn't treated fairly or appreciative, and I was getting really sick of it. So I decided to stop showing up to these places. One place in downtown called Nicholsons, I stopped showing up at because I went from 30 hours the first week to like 12 the next, and 6 the week after that. And they didn't even put me in serving for training on the way to bartending. They just put me in hosting without training and were talking shit about me behind my back. And when I caught them, they chickened out and tried to run away from me. And they were cowards, basically. And these are the same people that complain and cry and whine and bitch on social media about how, oh my god, nobody wants to work anymore. We can't get any people. Nobody wants to stick around. They'd rather get free money from the government. You know, and just complain like little bitches about everything. About how they can't get any work, but when people like me are willing to help, and even though we don't know what we're doing, we're willing to learn. And here they are complaining that nobody wants to work. It's like that chick on social media or you meet in high school. No man likes me. All men are the same. You know, it's the same stupid childish mentality. And then when you apply to these bars, it's literally the same thing. It's like they get picky after a week or two, and then they just make you leave, and they don't give you an explanation why. And you get all these people that I said earlier who don't have anything special in their lives talking shit about you. And bars and restaurants overall are just really toxic environments. And I can't believe I was able to tell this entire intro and story while tuning this damn guitar after I just changed the strings. I'm patient when it comes to this guitar. Like, if I'm patient to tune this guitar, I'm patient to deal with most people. That was another reason I became a bartender. I was tired of listening to people complain about their jobs and their life stories every day. And since I make drinks, I was like, cool, how would I just be a bartender and get paid to listen to your problems like a therapist? Bartending just isn't for me, and I think it was because of everything I just explained. And I've literally been able to tune this entire guitar while telling this.